Welcome to another episode of Like It or Not, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started, we have to give a big shout out to all of our sponsors that make this show possible. First and foremost, we want to give a big shout out to Barossa Transportation. Barossa Transport offers comprehensive services for all your transportation and property needs, including vehicle transport, heavy equipment hauling, property cleanup, material delivery, all that sort of stuff. Their dedicated team ensures reliable and efficient service, providing custom solutions tailored to your specific project requirements. They do it all: aggregate delivery, debris disposal and hauling, dust and maintenance mitigation, heavy equipment transportation, scrap metal recycling. Come on, man. If you got something you need to get rid of or get moved, Barossa Transport are the people to call for that. Call now, 707-358-2859, and they'll give you a free quote. Tell them your boys from Like It or Not sent you, and support the people who support the show. This episode is also sponsored by Thompson Construction. Wow, you guys, if you want somebody who's in the excavating and grading and general engineering contractor business based out of here, right here in Ukiah, Thompson Construction is the place for you. They specialize in septic system installation and repairs, land and site development for residential, commercial, agricultural, pond construction and lining, retaining wall construction, hillside grading, everything like that. They're also OQ certified for PG&E excavation and backfill, swimming pool excavation, concrete flatwork, and subgrade, asphalt paving, trucking services, all sorts of stuff. At Thompson Construction, they love what they do and they take the utmost pride in their work and their customer satisfaction with great attention to detail. No job too big or too small for Thompson Construction. Give them a call today and get your quote, 707-391-7679. That's Thompson Construction. Ladies and gentlemen of Like It or Not land, if you have not been to Mystic Bodywork, this is your sign to go. Mystic Bodywork offers an array of treatments and therapies for the body, mind, and soul. They do massage, they have red light therapy, readings, facials, cupping, they do it all. They're located right here in Ukiah. They also have a holistic wellness center called The Well, and there they provide a nurturing space for personal growth and spiritual explorations. They do group classes, including yoga. They also offer metaphysical workshops focused on energy healing, meditation, and intuitive development. They provide personalized readings and rebirthing, all sorts of amazing stuff for the mind, body, and soul. Check them out at www.mysticbodywork.com to see all that they offer, or give them a call to schedule an appointment today. 707-380-4742. You won't regret it. Give them a call, Mystic Bodywork. This episode of Like It or Not is also sponsored by The Thirsty Axe. Go to thirstyaxe.com and check out all of their upcoming events. By now, you know, and if you don't know, you're about to know, that the Thirsty Axe is Ukiah's awesome and amazing venue in town. They do music, they do karaoke, they do trivia, they do comedy shows, they do midget wrestling. They do it all, folks. Thirstyaxe.com has a list of all their upcoming events. They also have a full bar with amazing drink specials, a full-on melted grilled cheese menu, along with tater tots, all sorts of stuff. Their menu is fantastic as well. They're always improving, always doing something new. So please go to thirstyaxe.com and see what they have going on. Buy your tickets ahead of time and get in there and have a great time. Also, they have axe throwing, okay? Let's not forget that. It's in the name. Axe throwing is for you and your whole family. Stop by there. It's a great place to hang out. They got pool tables, free pool nights, always something going on at the Thirsty Axe, and you should be there. Big shout out to our day ones, DC Customs. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not following DC Customs on Instagram, you're missing out, dude. They've been posting the amazing creations that they do at DC Customs. So go on Instagram, give them a follow, and check out what they do. It's absolutely amazing. They turn an everyday ride into something that can climb over rocks and win car shows. I mean, it's just absolutely cool. They do it all for your boat, for your RV, for your daily driver. They got competitive tire pricing. They have a staff that's friendly and knowledgeable. Two really great things to have in this town. We can't say enough about these guys. If you need something for your vehicle or you need a new set of tires, please check out DC Customs first. You can go on their website at dccustoms.net, or you can give them a call to get your project started right away. 707-463-2227. That's DC Customs. Support the people who support the show. My name is Carter Lane.
I'm Drew Nickel.
Welcome to the show. Oh my God. I think you have a problem, bro.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh my goodness. Here we go. What's up?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Like It or Not.
Here we are again.
Yeah,
with a couple special guests. One, we got Gemma the Wiener Dog.
Yeah, welcome, Gemma. It's so nice to see you.
She thought she'd sit in on today's show just to see what it's all about.
Yeah?
She's usually upstairs.
How old is she now?
14.
14. Is that long in Dachshund years?
I mean, it's getting a little long in the tooth.
Is it?
You know what I mean? They usually will go 13 to 16.
Does she still have teeth?
Few.
Really?
Yeah.
Aww.
A couple sharp ones for
Poor girl.
For biting blonde kids with.
Hi, sweetie. I know she hates me. This is good. Look at her.
Yeah.
Look at her. She likes me. She likes me.
Yeah. What's going on over there, Laura? You doing all right?
Well, I'm admiring the dog.
Yeah. Welcome to the show.
In dog years, she's probably outlasted me in people years.
Well, let's see. 14 times 7. Who wants to do that math? She's
10,
old.
10 times 7 is 70.
So
14 times 7 is a lot more than 70.
yeah, she's like 104.
Holy shit.
my
Holy
gosh.
cow.
No, you can. We'll try. That's fine.
We can say all the bad stuff.
You can say anything you want.
If it feels
that's
good.
Totally okay.
Yeah.
So today on the podcast, we have Miss Laura Fogg. Welcome. Thank you
Hello.
so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank
Appreciate you the connection for you to come on and have a chat with us. And I know you from being an artist, from
Right.
being a quilter.
Right.
Right. You've I used to be the executive director for the Alex Rohrbaugh Rec Center.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And you have donated.
I've donated many a quilt to
Many quilts
fundraisers
to
for
our-
that organization.
Right. Yeah. And they're always the hot ticket item.
Well, that's good.
They're
to hear, 'cause
always-
I haven't gone to too many of those, so maybe none of them, to tell you the truth. So I never know quite what happens to them. But when I go visit people, all my friends, I see them hanging up on their walls, and I go, thank heavens there's people who buy all this stuff and, support the organization. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I know you. And then tell us more about how you're involved in the community through the arts and things like that.
Okay, I'll get one thing off my chest right away. There's all these different kinds of quilts. So I do not do the kind of quilts that people put on their beds to stay nice and warm and cozy. Those are beautiful, and that's not what I do. I do art quilts, and they're meant to hang on walls as a piece of art. It just happens to be, images done in textiles.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah. So I've been
Nice.
doing that. Since I moved into town about 27 years ago. I used to have a big old farmhouse on acreage in Redwood Valley, and 3 kids of my own, and a stepson, and a foreign exchange student, and a husband, and all kinds of things. And everybody left within about 6 months of each other. And I just kind of went, well, do I really want to put all my time and energy and resources into maintaining this ancient house, 100-year-old house?
Wow.
Or do I want to get rid of it and move into town? So I sold it and moved into town, and now they measure my property in feet, not acres, and it's like hallelujah. So then I spun around in circles. Okay, what do I do with myself now? And it was the perfect opportunity to take the time and turn myself into an artist.
Wow.
And where did you move to town from 27 years ago?
Redwood Valley.
And before that, where'd you live?
I lived in the Berkeley and the East Bay, and
Okay.
before that, Japan.
Nice. Japan's
yeah.
cool.
I don't even know if Japan's cool. I was born there, but I never.
Trust me, it's cool.
Oh, good. I do believe it. Yeah. There's all this, family history of me coming from Japan, but I don't remember a thing, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what facilitated the move from Berkeley to up here to the
Well,
sticks?
I married a local boy. He wanted to go back home, and that was just fine with me because I hated Berkeley. I grew up kind of in suburbia, but it was much more country than Berkeley, and it was overwhelming. I was there during the Vietnam War and the Cambodian invasion, and there were tanks in the streets and tear gas on the campus, and People's Park was happening, and people died there. And it was too much. And just walking out of my apartment, I was just felt like I was assaulted by, too many people. And so he wanted to go back home to this beautiful rural place. And I just went, hallelujah, I'm going too.
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
So we got married and moved on to his parents' property, and they invited us to stay in their house for a year or so while we built our own house on the property. And 1 year turned into 2 years in their house, and it was his parents and three of his other 4 siblings still lived there, and his grandparents lived right up the hill. And we're all of us in this house. 2 years go by, 3 years go by. We're still in the house. We haven't built ours. 10 years and 3 kids later, we finally got our own house more or less finished.
Wow.
And after all that, the marriage didn't last, but Mendocino County really stuck. It's such an incredible place.
It is an incredible place.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're fortunate to be here.
Yeah, we are. It's a gift, and I know lots of other people who had jobs and careers similar to mine, who worked in Sonoma County or Marin County or the Bay Area, and they just never had the kinds of wonderful experiences I had. And people trust each other here, and it's the drive to work. They gave me a county car, and they paid me to drive to Fort Bragg and Walla and Point Arena and Covelo, and this is all right.
Yeah.
So that was actually a whole lot of the inspiration for doing art, because I'm looking out of the windshield of the car, and it's just so beautiful. And every time I brought a camera with me, and I'd stop the car and take pictures of things, and decided I've got to do something about this, and that was what started all the landscape art quilts.
So cool.
Yeah.
And so you didn't start painting or anything. What drove you to quilting?
When I was in college, I studied art and took a lot of classes in various media, and I did study painting, and I'm a rotten painter. When I start mixing colors, they all turn brown. I mean, it isn't my thing. I tried, and how you try to do something, and if it doesn't resonate after a little while, you kind of begin to wonder, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I've always loved fabric, and I sewed everything when I learned how to sew in high school, and sewed my clothes and sewed the kids' clothes and the husband's clothes. And, even when you make something really fancy for yourself, you wear it, and then you wear it again, and then it's kind of getting tired. Everybody's seen it, and so that got boring, but I still loved the fabric, and I had already collected a lot of fabric, and then discovering that I can cut it up into little pieces and reassemble it into art, and with all this texture and vibrancy, and just fun stuff. So
Very cool.
So that was the deal. So
Awesome.
That's where the art started. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I took. Finally, after I moved into town, I had enough time to join a art quilt group, and they'd been asking me for years to join them, and I just just didn't have the bandwidth to do it because I was single parenting all these kids and a full-time job and this monstrous farmhouse. So coming into town, there was time to actually do this, and they were all signed up to go to some art classes down at Asilomar, art quilting classes, and the classes they were taking were full, so I went through the catalog and went, ooh, collage, that sounds like fun. And I took this one collage class all by myself, and we were supposed to make little projects like 14 inches square. And my first project was 3 feet by 4 feet. And the instructor just said, honey, just go with it. You're doing it. So, and that's the only class I've ever had in this technique. Mm-hmm. But it just bit hard.
Nice.
And hard and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been a member of the art community for a while.
Yeah, and especially with retirement, I've you guys don't know this yet, but retirement rocks. It's just, it's.
I wish I knew this already.
Oh, it's a preview of coming attractions for you. It's just, I'm not wealthy, but I have enough to live on, and I own my house. And there's a retirement check, unless somebody gets their mitts on it, it's mine. And I'm old, so I'm on Medicare, and it's, things get taken care of. I don't have to worry about working all day long to make enough money to buy the groceries and pay the rent and, get my knee replaced. So, it's just a blessing. So there is this kind of time that's, necessary.
Yeah, that's nice. Not to have to worry about those things. So, so we were connected through Tall Nick, right?
Yeah, Nick the Giant. Yeah.
Nick the Giant, right? On the lot. He was on the
Jolly
podcast.
Red Giant.
Wonderful Nick, yes.
He is a good guy.
Nick's
so
a
great.
wonderful fella. Yeah, he really has inspired a lot of energy with other people who are involved in that First Friday Art Walk, because he's just so passionate about it.
Yeah, it's infectious.
It is. Everything about him is infectious in the most positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had him on, and he talked all about it. And we got kind of excited about talking about the art walk. And one of the things that came up was that we had talked about the homeless situation.
Yes,
and I think you're doing some kind of art exhibit at the library around the homeless as well. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there's four. Well, it started out being four. Now it's three artists. Betty Lacey is one, and Janet Rosen is one. Janet's a painter, and Betty is also an art quilter, and myself. And we got a grant from the Community Foundation, and they're another one of these fabulous organizations. You just got to sing their praises. So, they're not huge grants, but they give you enough to make something happen on a very small local level. And we got this idea that, just the situation of homelessness is so, it's hot, it's confusing, people are bothered by it, people don't understand it, people are very troubled by it, people are very reactive about the whole thing of the homeless. And we ended up deciding that I've done a bunch of other art projects with groups of people who, through their art, they get to tell their stories, first person, first hand. It's just a wonderful, wonderful means of communication, and it's a means of soul searching. People can, if it's hard to find words to tell people who you are and why you're here and why that's important, sometimes the art images can be very,
it's
very
totally
powerful.
a form of therapy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I did I thought it was cool. It was a very positive and successful project with a whole bunch of indigenous people. And there was members of 12 tribes from 5 counties. And we worked together for 9 months with me. The only thing I did was to support the actual creation of these art quilts. And they chose their theme, and they did their art, and they told their stories. I didn't try to affect that in any way whatsoever, because that's not my place.
You were just there to facilitate the creation.
Facilitate the making of the art. And quilting is a tradition, and sewing is a tradition they have as well. So there were many of the participants who already knew how to use sewing machines, but just this idea of how you can cut fabric and put it together in this collage thing to make images. And so the theme they chose was our safety, our sovereignty. And they made some knockout quilts, both dealing with missing and murdered and relatives of theirs. There was not a single person in the room that didn't have at least one relative who was missing or murdered. And then also just to use the art to reclaim their culture, tell the stories of their dancing and their medicine and their religion and their food. And it was fabulous. So having that, and also that show, I managed to get it in as a special art quilt show in a huge one in the Bay Area called Pacific International Quilt Show. And about 30 to 40,000 people come to that show. Wow. And these people got to go down there with their quilts, and the whole show was presented as a special feature there. So that gave me a real sense of accomplishment that they did the work, but yes, this practice can support people telling their stories. And then it became evident that, well, I've got some very close connections with a family who have been off and on homeless. And we started talking, the artists thought that this would be another really great opportunity to include people who are experiencing homelessness and find a way to look at them as primarily human beings and find out through their stories, look at, how are we more alike than different? And how do they find a way to honor their own, what's the word I'm looking for? Their integrity, their right to be here, their presence, and their humanity. And how can they do that in a way to show the world that, they're important? And we have have you two been to the show at the library?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
I really recommend that you do it. It's up for the entire month of May, what's left of May, and then all of June as well.
Okay.
And they're pieces we started working at building bridges. We established a relationship with the people who directed, and they were positive about this idea. So last summer, the three of us artists started going there on a weekly basis and doing paper collage work with whichever residents were interested at that moment in stopping everything and doing some art. And people really got into it. Mm-hmm. And then the paper collage artist and the painter went off on her own schedule. She's doing one night workshop a week. And then Betty and I are doing one afternoon workshop a week. And we decided, okay, we've got people introduced to, what it feels like to sit down and create art. And then we would like to take it a step deeper. And so we asked people the question, where is a place that you would like to be, in your imagination or in reality or in your memory or what? Just what's your dream of where you'd like to be? And people, they made quilts that were, 14, 16 inches by, little rectangle pieces. They weren't huge. But people were, they cut up fabric and they put things together. And some of them were, a tremendous mess. And some of them, because different people have different histories with art. Some people had never done art. And they bravely dove into it and they did what they could with it. And other people had been, maybe a greater exposure to art and they had a little bit more skill. But they did the cutting and the arranging and chose what their subject matter was going to be. And they glued things together. And then I took them home, and I have a really nice freehand quilting machine. And so I was able to quilt over it to kind of hold things together and accentuate the elements and make some, extra designs and things on it with people's permission. I asked them, well, what would you like me to do with this? Do you want me to quilt stars in the sky? There was one woman who, her whole scene was she wanted to be lying on her back in a meadow looking up at the stars. And she had cut out a number of stars. And I asked her, when I'm quilting it, do you want me to make more stars? And, oh, yeah, she really liked that idea. And somebody else who was in a hammock under an apple tree, they wanted me to quilt like that. They had a sun up in the sky, and they wanted me to quilt the rays of the sun and to really accentuate the hammock. And anyway, somebody wanted to go to either Laos or the Yucatan Peninsula and be on a beach in the sun. Somebody else wanted to go to the pyramids, and she made these wonderful golden pyramids. And then other people depicted their families. And one guy who's Native American did this kind of a masky looking thing that was, sort of looked like it harkened back to maybe Aztec gods or something like that. And then I brought them back to people all quilted up, and almost to a one, they cried.
Aw.
Just seeing that, first of all, look what I've done. And they were really evocative pieces. And the guy who did this Aztec-like mask, he just looked at it and he burst into tears and he said, "It's my mother." And then we asked people to write the stories about, what they had shown and, why it was important. And some people just wrote little short ones, but other people wrote, 3 or 4 sentences. And those stories are all up on the wall with each piece in the library. And I think it would be really hard for anybody to go and see those and not understand that people who are homeless are individual people, with hearts and souls and
Sure.
hopes and dreams and worries and everything else.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think when we had that conversation with Nick,
Yeah.
that, obviously, I think a few people in the community that you're in the art walk were offended by it, and there was an email going around.
Yeah. It went a little off the rails, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. And, it's a different perspective, obviously.
Well, that's for
Yeah.
sure, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and here's the thing. Of course, we're all people here,
Absolutely.
but
First and foremost.
and no one's denying that.
Yeah.
But I think what we're really talking about is the impact that humans have on each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
where the frustration, I think, comes from, in that, okay, you're experiencing homelessness, but is that just where it ends? Or do we help these people?
Yeah.
Why do we accept that it's okay for people to just be on the street suffering, whether that's mental illness or drug abuse? But it just seems we've all become numb to the fact that that's just how some people are going to live their lives. And it negatively impacts the rest of us that are trying to live, a more conventional societal agreement that, like, okay, well, I'm going to do my part, you do your part, and we'll have a better experience in life because of it.
Yeah.
And then there seems to be a fringe people who just decide they're not participating in that anymore.
Yeah. And, it's an interesting, like, my perspective on that has changed, because I have certainly spent a lot of my life just thinking, like, why the heck can't you just whatever? Can't you clean it up? Can't you get a job? Why can't you just do this? Why can't you just do that? And I've spent maybe 15 years off and on fostering a number of kids who were all in the same family who were off and on homeless. And their mother, when I first encountered her, my general opinion and the opinion of people who knew her was her life's a train wreck. And she's uncooperative, and she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that, she doesn't do anything else. And, she's messing up. And I ended up getting to know her very well, because her child needed medical attention on a monthly basis at UCSF. And the child, this one girl, was just, CPS was involved. They were going to take the child away from the mother because the mother didn't get her to the appointments. And it occurred to me that maybe one of the smartest things I might be able to do through my job would be to take them in the county car and down to the appointments, make that part of it work. And the administration supported that. They thought that was a really good idea. It might be something I could do that would actually be supportive. So this mom, we put the kid in the back seat, at 6 o'clock in the morning, and start driving down there. And the mom is a very smart person and has many, many problems. But we ended up talking and talking and talking, and we were very, very honest with each other. And she's not white, and I'm clearly about as white as they come.
No.
And we ended up admitting to each other that both of us in the beginning were scared to death about what it was going to be like to have to sit in the car all the way down to San Francisco and back up, like what was going to happen. And we ended up, we made room for each other. And and we told stories about, what our lives were like and, how things were working. And this woman really, she cared. She loved her kids. She really did. She cared about her kids. She wanted the best for them. And there was stuff that she just couldn't make it work. I mean, there was not that she didn't want to. She didn't drive for a number of reasons. So she didn't have a car and she couldn't drive. And so she had to depend on other people for transportation to get the kid down to, to UC. And the person who was supposed to pick them up wouldn't show up. And then what do you do about that? It's 5:30 in the morning and you've got to leave in 10 minutes and there's nobody here. And she didn't really, she wasn't comfortable enough in the dominant white culture to phone somebody at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, my ride didn't show up. What can I do? She didn't understand about phoning down to UC to tell them she wasn't going to make it. That wasn't it wasn't a procedure she was comfortable with. Though finally, after, many, 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 many months and years of doing these drives down together, she started, and me telling her, it really worked better for you if you can, find a phone and make that call and let somebody know. Then people aren't going to be so mad at you. But it was stuff that she didn't know, and it was fears of facing somebody who was going to get mad at her, and it was just plain because of so many negative circumstances, just absolute inability to get stuff done. And I ended up feeling a lot more compassion and a lot less judgment. And I still agree that there are definitely, it's a very big problem in this community and other communities, the amount of mess that, unsheltered people end up leaving on the street. And sometimes the stuff that goes on with homeless people can be pretty disastrous.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming a real, I don't know what the right word is, epidemic, or, it's a situation in our community. If you grew up in Ukiah in the 90s compared to, or even in California in general, right? But specifically, this town in 90 to 2000 compared to what we see and are dealing with today is
very different.
Yeah, and I agree. I feel compassion for many people that are in that situation.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of excuses being made for people. And it's like, yeah, that woman, you're right. She would have had to pick up the phone and face consequences or have an uncomfortable conversation or talk to a white person or done any number of things. But there's clearly a very kind lady who's willing to put her in her county car and drive her there. Like, what more can you do? And then the question is, if somebody's doing that for you, you don't need to expect anything in return from that person. But also, like, is that helping them? Are they paying that forward? Are they seeing how they could have done things differently and done that in that specific situation? I think for me, the frustrating part with the homelessness is that you see somebody like Nick, who's literally turning nothing into something, taking a lot and making it an epicenter for art, and he's on the daily dealing with people experiencing homelessness, experiencing going to the bathroom in his lot. Yeah. And when we talk about it, the conversation is, oh, we're mean to homeless people, instead of what about poor Nick and what he's having to deal with. I just think we to me, it's like, I understand that not everyone is going to function on a level in society that we all are, and we have to understand that. And my problem isn't necessarily the people that are homeless. It's the fact that it's become so accepted in our society. Yeah. We spend so much money on homelessness, yet the people that it's supposed to help, that money never gets to them.
Yeah. Well, there's some there's a whole lot of very well done studies that are showing that if people who are unsheltered get a place to live and get some money. Most of them spend that money in a really, they buy a car, they pay off a medical bill, they get daycare for a kid so they can go work. Not everybody. And then a whole nother aspect of it very clearly is that addiction can, that kind of takes the bottom out of reasoning. And I certainly see that at Building Bridges. I think to their credit, Building Bridges, they don't demand that people be clean and sober.
Right.
They're trying to help real people with real problems in real time.
Meeting them where they're at.
But my point is just like we should just say it's not an option to be to sit on the street and just do drugs. Like you don't get to do that. That's not a choice you can make.
Yeah.
You can go somewhere and do drugs outside of, not in front of Safeway where moms are trying to bring their kids.
Yeah. Well,
because it's unclean and unsafe in front of the grocery store now. Or we can help you, and we'd love to help you, and you can have help. Which choice is it, right? You're going to go somewhere unpleasant or go do your drugs or, clean up. And like we've had people on who talk about, and I think, Ukiah is making efforts to do that now where it's police aren't the answer. We don't want to just keep sending the cops.
They're not the answer, no.
Yeah.
And there's nice people and a lady who comes and meets homeless people and is like, hey, these services are available for you. They're not going to walk into a county building or a city building and ask for help, like you said.
Right.
They're not going to do that. So we need to go out and find them and say, hey, look, there's choices for you, And so, the conversation is a little off the rails. I think it's a frustration and a sentiment that's held by a lot of different people. But
Well, I think there's within any group of people, there's dynamics that are there, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
even as we're talking about the people experiencing homelessness, there's all sorts of different categories of them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like there's
Right.
one guy in there who he was a cook at Denny's, like forever, and then Denny's
Does he have
closed.
one eye?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
remember him?
Yeah, I do remember him.
And Denny's closed, and he's old, and
Yeah.
he wasn't able to get another job. And he's a perfectly upstanding citizen, and he's not an addict, and
Yeah.
he's not an alcoholic, and
Sure.
and he's down on his luck. He didn't have enough resources to keep himself sheltered. And then there's other people who are, just clearly out of it.
And
Sure,
those are the people, the ones that stick out in
Yeah,
our society,
yeah.
right? I think there's a bunch of them that go under the radar that are just like this guy, down on their luck.
Yeah.
Or have families that are staying at, well, I can't remember the name of it, but the hotel that they turned into temporary
Oh, yeah,
homeless housing. And,
yeah.
there's a bunch of them, probably the majority of them are under the radar. It's the ones that are causing the ruckus.
Yeah.
That are defecating in front of buildings and shooting up and not caring about our community or the people in it.
I think those poor people, I don't think they're capable of caring about a whole lot. I mean, they're barely breathing. They're just.
Well,
they've really got problems. And,
I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have almost 20 years sober,
Good
and
for
I
you,
understand
yeah.
the addiction for me overrode pretty much everything else.
yeah.
And I didn't care about and it would be like, fuck you. I don't give a shit about what's going on here.
Yeah, really.
So I understand that very clearly. And I understand everybody else's frustration in trying to deal with me when I was like that.
Yeah. It's not easy. I've been there with people in my family. And
Yeah.
It's just it's hideous. And as much as you want somebody to change, and you want to be a good person and help them, and they keep, it's the old adage, nobody can change you. You have to change yourself. And so I think there's some of this, we aren't going to solve. And maybe it's just, my hope is maybe, more of us can find some compassion. And I totally hear you. It's ugly, and it's brutal, and it would just be really nice if people didn't have to live that way. And all across the country, there's a horrible housing shortage. I mean, even if you can afford a house, there's a housing shortage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, places where, here where they're trying like mad to get shelter for people. I don't know how many people at Building Bridges find shelter. That, every day we find out about somebody else who's gotten a place to live, but that's one a week or two a week. I don't know. I really don't know how many people they find shelter for.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's compassion for all people. Like we're all here having a human experience, and that's rough.
Yeah.
But like the other side of that is the fact that it's making our town an unpleasant place to live, and I think that needs to be addressed. And that's what we're been trying to do on this podcast is just address the things that we see are like, everybody seems to be turning their heads like. Yes, you have mental issues. Yes, you're addicted, and we have compassion for that. The other side of it is you're on the corner with a knife, screaming in a window, scaring everybody who's trying to go into that business next door and get their hair cut.
Yeah, and I have no solution.
And that's the tricky part is that there is not a solution right now.
There is not a solution right now, and maybe one of those people finds a place to go where they can. Detox and
get the help they need.
Get the help they need, and it's it really is a big problem.
I think it is a big problem, and I think that there's not any one magic silver bullet that's going to fix it. But I think we've talked about on this podcast for a long time that it starts on a few different levels, right? Yeah. One, it starts at home, right, and having families be engaged with each other and helping kids that are in situations that aren't good for them. Yeah. Two, it's how about some accountability to government?
Yeah.
Like we keep voting for the same people. We've got $24 billion allocated towards homelessness in California that's gone missing and nobody knows where it is. Something like 12% on every dollar is actually reaching the people. So we're spending all of this money that should be going to programs to help this people, and it's getting sucked up by bureaucrats.
Well, what can we do about that? Probably not a whole lot.
How about vote for somebody else? Right? I mean, well, there's a start.
Your vote's your voice, whatever you believe in. It's and well, just right there, the fact that our voting, the number of people who turn out to vote is so dismally low. It would be really nice if we had more people.
I agree with you.
Get responsible and go, learn something about what's going on and go do it.
How many people in this world don't have the right to vote for what happens in their life? And the people in this country who do just choose not to participate. And then bitch about it.
Just bitching about it doesn't help a whole lot.
For sure.
But it's, so anyway, doing the art and maybe the only thing we're going to accomplish is to help people have a slightly more nuanced view about quote unquote, the homeless, to maybe see that they're individual people who have pluses and have minuses and struggles and successes, that, it's not one, glob of horrible people.
You're right about that. I think that's super fair.
Yeah.
Because you do have like people who's, maybe their husband was the breadwinner in the family and they died suddenly, right? And now they're on the streets with their kids. I mean, there's definitely, or the one-eyed cook from Denny's who we all saw back there for a long time, and now that's a crazy story, and I would love to actually, maybe even help with that situation. And then you have the transient aspect of it, right? Which is a whole different situation, that people that are homeless, but they're not from this community.
Well, most of them are. It's just statistically everywhere, most of the people the majority, there's certainly people who are moving through, but the majority have very strong connections. There's a huge number of people who actually graduated from high school here, who've got family here, who have very good friends here who've helped them out at various times.
Yeah.
So so they're not all just coming here to enjoy the quality of the
free dog food and the good speed,
the handouts. So, but it's really interesting.
I wonder if, sorry to interrupt you, I just had a thought. I wonder if the majority of them are here, where are their families and their friends that would help them?
Well, I know in a lot of cases, dead or estranged. Getting to know individual people is, and just kind of getting a little bit of a window into, what might your life have been like, or if people want to talk, what was your life like? The stories over and over and over are rampant sexual abuse, for children. And that ruins people. It really does. Growing up in a family where alcoholism and drug addiction was rampant, that's another thing that ruins you. Not necessarily, but it can.
Right.
So many people have got some like low-level disability, whether it's something like, ADD, attention deficit disorder, or maybe hyperactivity or dyslexia. And what seems to happen, and I was a special education teacher, so I'm kind of aware of those things and the effect it can have on people. And if you go to school and you're dyslexic, you can be really smart, and you can look at something and it doesn't make sense, or what's being presented doesn't make sense. And then you get behind, and then there's more stuff that doesn't make sense. And then there's more, and you can't participate, you can't stick with your group with any of the assignments. And then you start screwing off, or you stop coming to school, or you develop other,
Sounds like my high school experience.
Well, very likely, yeah.
Start screwing off and couldn't keep up.
Acting out behaviors. And if you don't come to school, then you pretty much can't come back. I mean, even if the truant officer gangs up with your parents and gets you back, you're lost. And this happened to some of my foster kids, is they had missed enough school, again, just because of, it's this snowball of just rotten stuff that happens. Is they can't get to school, they missed the bus because something happened, or there wasn't any food and they didn't get breakfast, and mom went to the neighbors and then the bus came and they didn't get there, or the car didn't start, or whatever. And they hate school, and then they start doing stuff. And then a lot of that doing stuff ends up getting involved with drugs. And then you're a mess. And it's just, I just can't imagine what these people have to go through to get clean. It's just, it looks like torture. And so, but it looks like to me that almost everybody that I've talked to there has very clearly got something kind of little like that may well have precipitated the whole thing, or one little thing like dyslexia combined with a dose of sexual abuse combined with and there's that whole thing that's called SLEDS. I think it's a bunch of childhood adverse experiences that there's 10 of them, and
it's ACEs.
Oh, ACEs. Okay,
Yeah.
SLEDS is something else. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if
Adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah. And there's the whole list of them. And if you've got, 3 of the 10, and some of those things are as, relatively innocuous as, living in a home where your parents are divorced, or going hungry, or, sexual abuse. But 3 of those things are pretty much guaranteed to screw you up in some rather important way.
It has to do with neuroscience as well. Like
yeah.
if you have that many traumas, your brain rewires itself in a way that it makes it harder for you to learn. It makes it like life expectancy goes down. Like
Absolutely.
It has a bunch of these crazy effects that you wouldn't think.
Your ability to control anger goes down, and that's another really bad one. If you have a hard time with impulse control and anger control, then the police get involved. And I mean, it's just a lot of these things just look like they're vicious downward spirals that they get out of control someplace. And theoretically, everybody could be figured out and kind of supported in school enough so that kind of stuff could be mitigated. It doesn't always work.
I think that's right where it is. It doesn't work, but I think always work, right? But I think if we could really start as a society putting more importance on understanding that homelessness is the result of things that start at this age.
All these things.
Right.
Where can we start
on,
there?
Drew. You know what? The thing that really bothers me is, I mean, prevention is where it's at.
Yeah.
But prevention isn't sexy because it's really, I think it's just a general failure of imagination in our society. Is we cannot imagine an outcome that we can't see. And prevention,
Well, we can see it now walking the streets.
well,
Right.
you can see the result, but with prevention, you don't get hard statistics. You can never say with a really good program that
Yeah.
catches kids with dyslexia early on, how many of those kids, how many cases of homelessness, and by the age
You've
of 35,
prevented.
there's no
Yeah.
way to quantify that, and it's expensive. It's really expensive. But the same thing with jails. If you could keep people out of jail, first of all, or have really great rehab programs so the recidivism wouldn't be so bad, we'd be in a much better place.
I
but
totally
instead
agree.
we incarcerate them, and that costs way more than preventing.
Exactly.
and it does nothing. It gives them a free
Yeah.
place to stay for the night and a meal,
Well,
and then
it-
they're out the next day
and
doing the same
It
thing.
may mess them up even more.
Sure.
That I mean, I have not been in jail personally, but I hear that it's kind of a nasty place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not somewhere you wanted to vacation, huh?
Not some, I do not aspire to spend a night in jail. Thank you very much. But again, I mean, that probably can make a bad thing just a hell of a lot worse for people that might have been, able to avail themselves of opportunities otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where the shift in society needs to take place. And we've talked about it on this podcast numerous times over the years. But like you just said, where are we spending the money incarcerating people
Yeah.
and spending money on homelessness, 24 billion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We're not going to go out and necessarily like take all the people on the streets and have them live happily in an apartment. That's not how we're going to fix the problem. But we have to allocate money to what we're talking about here, which is the prevention.
Yeah, and that starts at birth. It starts before birth. because
Exactly.
People with fetal alcohol syndrome don't fare very well, and even babies who have fetal alcohol syndrome, who are then adopted at birth and raised by affluent people who abide the law and all that stuff, many of them do not do very well. They have a horrible time with impulse control as a rule. They have a hard time learning. Those are not recipes for success in school.
Yeah.
And they have a hard time, bonding with people.
I think the way that school is being done now is really going to have to change. Like just in general, I think school is cooked because one, you could take somebody like me or any of these kids with ADD or whatever diagnosis you want to give them and say, yeah, you make them sit in a chair for 12 hours a day and stare forward and pay attention and follow the rules. They're not going to do well.
Sounds like you know that from firsthand.
Yeah, right? And you keep getting the stick over
How
and
did
over
you
again.
guess?
There was a clue.
Drew had his own seat next to the principal's office with his name on it.
That's very true. But the point is, it's not that you don't want to do well, you don't
Right.
want to please people, and
Absolutely.
you don't have the
Yeah.
ability to be successful.
Yeah.
You just got to find your own environment.
Yeah,
And as
yeah.
people get older and out of that environment, they find places where they can do well.
Yeah.
And the other thing is AI is so totally like to go and do a book report now. Everybody's using AI.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
hear that, yeah.
So if you haven't had experience
That's
with
crazy.
it, but the way you go home and do homework now, you could just AI will do it all. So we have to. I think the whole idea of school and the educational system needs to be completely rethought because times have changed, technology's changing, and what we're producing is some very bright, brilliant, amazing people, but there's also an underbelly that's coming out of the way things are that is getting very hard to ignore. And I think that topical ointments aren't going to work. We got to find the root and really start to fix the issue.
Right here, we could go do it. We can
Yeah.
change the world.
Well, that's definitely why we have a podcast where at least we can have a
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
to get people
yeah,
thinking. And
yeah.
I appreciate you coming on because I think sometimes it gets, some of the things we say may be a little bombastic or out there, but at the same time, it's coming from a real place of frustration in our community that we care about.
Yeah, and I really appreciate being asked on and that you brought up that whole issue about that talk with Nick that got kind of crazy on the homeless people.
Yeah, well, we want to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about it because
yeah.
I know Nick got a lot of heat from it, and he was just trying to promote art.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and we were all talking about the frustrations that we deal with, and I think the other thing is like we're not adverse to ever having a conversation with anybody who has a different point of view or disagrees with the things that we're saying because that wouldn't be. We're not trying to exist in a jar here.
It gets boring too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hate talking to this guy week after week after week at the same stuff.
Gotta
We've been doing it since we were 8 years old, dude.
Oh my
It's
God.
getting old.
So, did you guys grow up together?
Yeah,
Oh, of
we've been
course
friends
you did, yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
But we're not just trying to be right. We're just trying to have a conversation and have a real, authentic dialogue, even if that sometimes, the conversations we're having are real conversations people are feeling, and I get where you're coming from, that they are people, and I admire using art to humanize them and understand that. And when we're connecting it to the cook at Denny's or the mom, like that's a real thing that makes us want to help people. I think.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. And that I feel like you just said that from your heart.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And that is exactly the result that we want to get from doing this art show, is for people to open their hearts to a different side of the reality that's maybe a little bit more nuanced. And it isn't the only answer. And and I hear you too. The frustrations are real, and the problems are real. But
for sure.
The art, I think the art is just really, really great way to find out who people are. We're sort of circling this whole thing back to the topic of art, which is what we started on.
Yeah.
And so are you interested in First Fridays? I guess you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's I've always enjoyed the First Friday Art Walk.
Yeah.
I thought that was when I was involved with it some way, I can't remember how, but they had the maroon flags that you used to put outside your business.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that we'll go back to some kind of a flag. The only trouble with the maroon ones, especially in the evening, they're dark and they don't show. We need something that's a little splashy, or
you need a little spotlight.
Yeah, or
that shines up in the air or something.
that moves, that's really colorful would be nice. But it's the art walk thing. During COVID, it just obviously died because everybody was closed. And the Corner Gallery and Art Center Ukiah, we share a building, and where I think it's fascinating where we exist. Our storefront is on the intersection of Church and State, which is like, is that
metaphorical?
It's impossible, and there we are.
I love that.
So we kind of like the whole idea of it's really the linchpin of that building is our gallery is the linchpin of the whole downtown art movement, and we're getting, since COVID simmered down, we've been getting more and more people coming on the First Friday openings.
Oh, that's great.
It's really super. And then with, there's a lot of places. I hope Medium ends up in a different location that's closer to downtown, the Medium Art Gallery. Have you been there?
No, where's that now?
Okay. You know where Baskin Robbins is?
Yeah.
That's right next to Baskin Robbins
Okay.
in the Pear Tree Shopping Center.
Yeah, they got to get downtown so they can be part of the art walk.
I think that's their fervent wish. But right now they're in the Pear Tree Shopping Center, and their gallery is very, very different from the Corner Gallery. And they actually changed, they now have a nonprofit, so they're the Medium Art. Oh my God, I think it's the Medium Art Center. I can't remember their new name, or the Medium Art Collective. And they have monthly themed shows. They don't charge any entry fee. They're more of an art center. They do art, some classes, some art events and things, so people who come can participate in creating art. And they have a much younger clientele. Many of the artists, not all of them, but many of them are younger, a little edgier. And
all right.
It's fun. It's pretty lively.
Yeah, I've shown my art in there.
Yeah.
Once before.
And I've shown my art there, and I'm not young, but I can get kind of edgy. So and all this stuff there isn't edgy, but it's they have some really good shows. The one coming up is called I can do this. consume.
Nice.
Yeah, why that mental Rolodex was flapping around for a minute there. Yeah. So it's called consume, and the idea is just how do you respond to that notion of this, all that we use so much stuff. So I've got 2 pieces in there made entirely of recycled stuff, and I just found out today they're both accepted. So yay!
Cool.
Yeah, and then so there's that gallery, and I don't get to do the rounds very often because I'm usually staffing the corner gallery. We like to have a lot of our members there, both to welcome people and just kind of keep our phenomenal number of sales happening and all that. But I know W Real Estate on the corner of Perkins.
Yeah.
They do art.
I worked for W from like 2016 to 2020.
Yeah.
So they would do that's where I kind of was first participating in the
good.
art walk
Yeah.
because they do it every Friday there too.
Yeah. Every first Friday.
First Friday, I mean, yeah.
And then the Grace Hudson Museum is always open on first Friday, and even if it's not the opening,
Gosh, that's a place I never think of.
Well, you know what?
So cool.
The
It's so
Grace
cool.
Hudson Museum is a treasure. It is just a
Totally.
gift.
Very cool.
It's a gift to this community, and in my humble opinion, it's just a world-class museum. They've got this fabulous collection of pomo baskets to start with, and then all of the Grace Hudson paintings. And then in the front room, every 3 months they do a new show, and sometimes they're with, like right now, the art is not fantasy, but it's I can't think of the word of their show either, but it's Imagine, something like that. It's kind of fanciful, creative art, all done by I think 15 local artists.
Cool.
And there's some great stuff in there.
That's awesome.
So they had their opening last Friday, but they're still always open with their current show on first Fridays. And then the corner gallery is in the front of our 201 South State Street Church and State address. And so we're a co-op gallery where there's about 14 or 15 members, and we all pay dues to get 8 feet of wall space in the central part of the gallery. So we just show our own work. And then we rent out the front windows by the month to guest artists who want to have that wonderful, front windows that people can see all day and all night.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and then there's a back room that houses Art Center Ukiah, which is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. And we do, I'm on the board, we have themed shows every month, and we have a small entry fee, $10. We have to make enough money to pay our rent to the corner gallery. So we do sort of an even balance of themes that some of them are kind of provocative, and some of them are more to do with social or environmental justice. Some of them are a little bit more benign. There's one coming up that's called it's about paper making and paper. In June we're doing Pride, and that'll be really interesting. That I've run into quite a number of LGBTQ plus people who are phenomenal artists. So the whole idea is just, again, you people as individuals are members of this community, and you're important, and you're here. So who are you? And Will Gonzalez from We Flowers is going to do the floral centerpiece. He did that for us last year.
Yeah, he's great.
Will is phenomenal.
Doesn't he have the Macy's parade? Doesn't he do something with that or something like that?
Will's got his stuff all over the place.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
then the corner gallery, or not the corner gallery, but the lot on Main. Nick is doing another event. I'm sure. On this this Friday. Yeah, this Friday.
It's coming up. It is, what day's today? It's
not this Friday,
It's not
but
this
next.
week. It's June 6th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
June 6th.
Yeah.
That'll be right before our performance at Sundays on the Park on June 8th.
Oh, yeah. Well, give yourself a plug.
Hey, come see us play.
Yeah. So you guys come to my event. I'll come to your
Deal.
event.
All right.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
That sounds
I'll be
good.
there.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
come by on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the library, the show at the library that you helped.
We're calling the show that the people at Building Bridges are the art that they're producing. The name of the show is We Are You. So again, there's that idea that there really isn't that much that separates us. We all have a whole heck of a lot more in common than we have, that keeps us different and separated. So,
He says that all the time.
well, it's probably true.
It is
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
and you're right
yeah.
about that.
Well, and even, just human beings are like 97% identical, and it's just this last little 3% of our genetic stuff makes us, black and white and smart and not smart and, red-haired and white-haired and age well and not age well. There's just that little bit that makes us different. So, and it's pretty silly that we get all excited about the differences because, that keeps us interesting, but it's just, anyway, that's kind of...
I couldn't agree more.
That's the reality.
I totally think you're right on the money with that. It's like we're much more similar than we are dissimilar.
Yeah. And if you can approach the dissimilarities with curiosity, that's something I'm trying to learn. Like I really appreciate you for thinking about this kind of stuff, Drew, because it is important. And I was raised to be really judgmental. My mother was her family were immigrants from Ireland and Wales, and the Irish and the Welsh were just one step, what they got here, they were one step above the Italians. And it's just, and every group of people who came here felt like they had to step on the current lowest group just to get a leg up. And she wasn't mean, but she was racist. And how can you be racist without being mean? It was so judgmental and so thoughtlessly judgmental. And it's something that I've thought about, in my own attitudes towards people, for years and years and years, is that, does the judgment help anything? Well, no, it just makes me look dumb. And it isn't necessary. And the idea of trying to find a way to, just to learn to be a little bit more just openly curious about all these others, that gets quite interesting. And it's this mother of this foster daughter that lived with me for many, many years who really helped me learn some about that, because she was the most compassionate human being. And, when stuff was rough for me, she was there in many ways. And I got a lot of, when I got that much respect for her as a human being, it was really hard to be so judgmental. I felt like, yes, I recognize that she's got real problems, and I recognize that she does things that are harmful, but I respect her, and I'm interested in, what makes her the person she is.
Yeah, I think that's totally cool, and that's totally fair. And I don't disagree. I just think that sometimes we get lost in acceptance, and sometimes let's not forget about the people that are the staples that are really putting footholds that are keeping this community together, right?
They're important.
It'd be great to see an art exhibit dedicated to business owners, of our community that do great work every day, that totally go unnoticed, that contribute to, all kinds of different things that make this place we live in a better place to live.
Well, some of those business owners sponsor shows for Art Center Ukiah.
Sure.
We try to give them kudos up one side and down the
Good.
other, because, boy, that's important. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's two sides of the scale, right?
Yeah,
And we got to balance it and make sure things don't get out of balance. And I think we just kind of see it as our job. Sometimes when we see things getting a little bit out of balance, we want to have a conversation about it. So we sure appreciate you coming on and
thank you.
being here.
It might be really interesting for you guys sometimes if you can find somebody who is experiencing homelessness, who'd be willing to talk to you. I'm sure it would take building some trust. That's a whole nother issue. It's like, I get introduced to people, but they don't trust me. There's no reason.
Sure.
There's no reason why people should trust me until they have some experience.
Right.
Realizing that, I will treat you with respect, and I'm not gonna fight with you. I want to hear you.
Yeah.
But you have to prove that.
Totally.
Maybe quite a number of times. But it might be a really, if you could develop a relationship with some individuals, maybe a couple of people together so they didn't feel too singled out, might be a really fascinating thing to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
See what
We're always open to new ideas and
Yeah,
new guests
yeah,
and new
yeah,
conversations.
yeah,
And that's the whole reason we started
Well,
this podcast
yeah,
was to
yeah,
have conversations
yeah,
with each other
yeah.
during COVID when nobody was talking except over
Right.
the keyboards.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And it was just a mess.
Yeah.
So we,
But real communication is just so important because I think maybe we're hardwired to see ourselves as, it's us and them, all those others, because there's so many of them and I don't know them. They all look really threatening and maybe they're going to come and they're looking for my stuff or not really, but it's if you start knowing individuals and finding out what makes them tick, it helps. And then likewise, I'm sure if I'm doing that to somebody and just stay away, you're weird, you're scary, they're probably thinking exactly the same thing about me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Well, it was my pleasure entirely. Yeah. So everybody come to First Fridays, come do the walk. Every one of the galleries has a little brochure that Nick has put together for us. There's a little map. It's got little art on it, and he had people color it for him, and so you can find out where
June
to go.
6th, and what time does it usually start?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah, and the library stops at 7 o'clock, but the rest of the venues stay open till 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and we are going to have Charlie Seltzer is going to play keyboard music.
Oh,
at
yeah.
the gallery.
I love Charlie.
Oh, Charlie's a hoot, and he's going to play all these crowd pleasers. So anybody who likes to sing can just drop in and make noise with Charlie.
Awesome.
And we're also we're going to be so busy on First Friday. There's a young man from China named William who is going to the boys' school out at DRBU in Talmadge, and this guy is a prodigy artist. He is just fantastic, and he's during COVID he got really concerned about the animal rights, and he was raising chickens, kind of something to do while he was isolated, and he's a painter, so he started painting these chickens and really kind of bonding with them. So now he's going to do a 16-foot wide painting of 1,000 chickens, and he wants to do that as a fun. This is real, yeah, and it's just spectacular. And he does Chinese brush painting, and they are absolutely beautiful.
Nice.
And so he's got 2 goals. 1, he wants to raise money for animal rights organizations. And 2, he wants to get himself into the Guinness Book of World Records.
For the painting with the most chickens?
The painting with the most chickens. Nobody on the planet has ever painted 1,000 chickens before.
I find it hard to believe someone's painted 999 chickens before.
Yeah, he might beat that by far.
Yeah. He has a painting that's going to be in the paper when the article about him is published next week with 100 chickens in it.
Great.
Yeah,
Cool.
and it's going to be live art, and that's going to be going on throughout the month until he gets it done. But he'll be painting. Charlie's going to be playing. There's going to be Will in the back with the Pride show. It's going to be nuts.
All right.
And fun.
Good.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting both of you and talking to you.
Yeah.
And learning something about you.
Yeah, enjoyed meeting you too.
Thank
you
you.
for taking time out of your day to come by, and thank you for all that you're doing for our community and for the art walk and everything. Thank you.
We're all happy. Thank you.
Yeah, right on.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.